If you've ever stared at a party invite on your phone and felt this weird mix of guilt, dread, and a tiny bit of relief when you finally hit decline, this is for you. Because you've probably wondered at least once, is there something wrong with me? Why does everyone else seem to live for this stuff? Why does the idea of being stuck in a room full of people make me want to disappear even though I'm not antisocial and I do care about people? And chances are, if you clicked on a video called Why High IQ Individuals Reject Social Gatherings, you've had that feeling more than once. Here's the wild part. What looks like being antisocial from the outside can actually be the product of a brain that is working really well, just differently from the environment it's in. Not better, not worse, different. And that difference, when you zoom in, is backed by a lot more psychology and neuroscience than you might expect. So let's start with something really simple that you might never have been told directly. Your dislike of social gatherings might not be a character flaw. It might be your brain doing exactly what it's wired to do and doing it efficiently. If that sounds a bit too comforting, stay with me. We'll make it uncomfortable in a useful way later. But first, I want you to actually feel seen for a second. Think about the last social gathering you went to. Maybe it was a birthday party, maybe an office thing, maybe some random get-together your friend dragged you into. You walk in, music is too loud. Lights may be a bit too bright or too dim. People grouped up into little circles having overlapping conversations. Someone is shouting over the noise about something you don't really care about. There's, "So, what do you do and how's work?" And, "Did you see that thing on Netflix?" on repeat. Externally, you're nodding, smiling, throwing in a joke here and there, doing what you're supposed to do. Internally, it's like 200 tabs open. You're tracking tone shifts. You're reading micro expressions. You're predicting what someone might say next. You're trying to decide when it's polite to leave a conversation. You're suppressing the urge to say something brutally honest. You're replaying that one slightly awkward sentence you said 10 minutes ago. And at the same time, you're thinking, this entire thing could have been an email. If that feels familiar, it already tells us a lot. High IQ brains tend to process more information in a given moment, not just in math or logic, but in patterns, subtleties, implications. That extra bandwidth sounds amazing on paper, but in a social environment, it can turn a simple gathering into a sensory and cognitive overload. Most people experience a party as background noise plus some faces. You might be experiencing it as live data stream with constant analysis, quality check, and predictive modeling running in the background. So, while other people are being refueled by the crowd, you're being drained by the volume of mental processing you're doing that they don't even realize is happening. And then the world slaps a label on you. Antisocial, cold, arrogant, or that special favorite. You think you're better than everyone. Let's clear that up right away. Preferring solitude or small, deep interactions is not the same as believing you're superior. In many cases, it's closer to, "I'm tired. This is not interesting, and my brain wants to be somewhere else right now." So why do high IQ individuals often reject social gatherings? There isn't one reason. There are layers. Cognitive, emotional, sensory, existential, and they stack up. One of the big ones is stimulation. There's this idea in psychology that some brains are more sensitive to stimulation than others. It's tightly related to introversion and extroversion. But it's not just are you shy or not, it's about how your nervous system responds to input. For many high IQ individuals, the brain is already buzzing at a pretty high baseline. Even when you're alone, you might be running mental simulations, planning, analyzing, remembering, fantasizing, solving problems that no one asked you to solve. That internal world is busy. Now, drop that brain into a chaotic social environment. Multiple conversations, loud noise, unexpected interruptions, constant micro-decisions like, who do I talk to next? How do I respond to this joke? What is the social rule in this context? For someone whose brain is already processing at a higher level, the extra input can push things from stimulating to overstimulating really fast. Imagine your phone is already running heavy apps in the background. Adding a demanding game on top doesn't just add fun, it drains the battery and heats the whole thing up. Parties can feel like that game. So, while other people leave thinking, that was fun, we should do it again, you leave thinking, I need to lie down in a dark room and stare at the ceiling for 2 hours. That's one piece of the puzzle. Another piece is quality of stimulation versus quantity. A lot of high IQ individuals experience what looks like snobbiest but is actually just mismatched interests. Their brain wants novelty, complexity, deep divs. It wants to talk about weird questions, big ideas, intricate systems, personal philosophies. It wants to pull apart the why behind things. But most social gatherings are not built for that. They run on small talk, shared references, light topics that keep a large group feeling comfortable. So when you show up with a mind that wants to discuss why people self-sabotage, and the room is stuck on who posted what on Instagram, it's like bringing a chess set to a room where everyone's playing Uno. It's not that Uno is below you. It's that your brain is wired to enjoy a different kind of game. If you've ever tried to bring up a deep topic at a party and gotten that awkward silence or the polite, "Ha, that's interesting," and then the conversation quickly slides back to something shallow. You know, the feeling of being too much for the room. After a few rounds of that, your brain starts learning. These environments are low reward for the effort I have to put in, and that's important. Low reward for high effort. Think of it like a cost-benefit analysis that your mind is doing in the background. Effort, getting ready, traveling, being on, managing small talk, filtering yourself, pretending to be more cheerful, more talkative, more normal than you actually feel in that moment, staying longer than you want because leaving early is judged. Reward. Maybe one decently interesting conversation, some surface-level jokes, a few photos, and the feeling of, I did the socially acceptable thing. If your brain is efficient, at some point it will simply say the math doesn't check out. And yes, intelligence is strongly linked to that kind of long-term cost-benefit thinking. Not in a moral way, just in a practical one. Smarter people are often more future-oriented, more aware of opportunity cost. So when they think I could spend 3 hours at this gathering, or 3 hours reading, building, learning, creating, or just sitting alone, actually processing my life, the second option can feel far more valuable. This is one of the reasons some research finds that highly intelligent people actually report being happier with less frequent socializing, especially if they have meaningful goals that occupy their time and energy. It's not I hate people. It's my resources are limited, and I want to allocate them where they matter most. Now, here's where it gets a bit subtle. Sometimes you genuinely don't enjoy gatherings. Sometimes you're telling yourself you don't enjoy them because they've never been designed in a way that fits you. And sometimes you do like people and connection, but your patience for social scripts is extremely low. There's also this big elephant in the room, small talk. Let's be honest, a lot of smart, introspective people hate small talk. It feels fake, repetitive, shallow. How are you? Yeah, I'm good. Crazy weather, right? Ha. Yeah. Your brain is screaming, tell me something real, tell me what you're struggling with, tell me what you're building, tell me what you're secretly afraid of, or the book that changed your worldview, or why you stay in a job you hate. Not this. But the social script is designed for safety, not depth. Small talk is like a buffer zone. It eases people into interaction without risking vulnerability. If your mind naturally wants to skip the safe buffer and go straight to the real stuff, you're going to feel out of sync with the rhythm of most gatherings. And here's the cool and annoying part at the same time. Highly intelligent people often crave understanding more than they crave attention. They're not always chasing look at me, they're chasing does anyone here actually get me? When a place is full of people but low on understanding, that environment feels lonelier than being alone. There's a special kind of emptiness in standing in a crowded room and realizing none of these people really know me, and I don't have the energy to bridge that gap right now. So your brain, being pretty efficient, goes, why put myself in that position again? Now there's another angle we need to talk about. Mismatch of values. These days, a lot of socializing is built around things that might not matter much to someone who thinks a lot. Flexing status, showing off lifestyle, talking about things you should like, performing happiness. If your mind is less interested in status and more interested in meaning, you are going to feel out of place where the main currency is how fun you look. Have you ever looked around at a gathering and thought, everyone seems to be playing a game I don't really want to play, but I'm being judged for not playing it well? That's not you being broken, that's you having a different set of values and priorities. Maybe you value depth over breadth, integrity over image, truth over comfort, growth over fitting in. Put someone with those priorities in a context that prioritizes the opposite. And of course, they're going to feel like they're suffocating a bit. And then we add one more layer. Metacognition, the ability to think about your thinking. A lot of people with high IQs are painfully, almost hilariously aware of their own behavior in real time. It's like a camera in your head, constantly giving you commentary. Why did you say that? That joke landed weird. Did they interpret that as rude? Okay, now you've been quiet for too long. Now you've talked too much. You're standing weird. You're overanalyzing this. You're now overanalyzing the overanalysis. That level of self-awareness can be useful in problem-solving. In social situations, it can be paralyzing. The more you monitor yourself, the less naturally you behave. The less naturally you behave, the more awkward you feel. The more awkward you feel, the more you monitor yourself. And by the end of the night, you're exhausted from having essentially run a full diagnostic on your personality. A lot of highly intelligent people aren't bad at socializing. They're just using way too much processing power on it. And anything that burns that much mental energy consistently starts to feel like something you want to avoid. There's also something else we need to mention. When you're very used to thinking a few steps ahead, superficial social interactions can feel painfully slow. You often see where conversations are going before they get there. You predict the punchline. You already know the standard opinions on a trending topic. You might hear someone repeat a cliché and your brain goes, "Right, that's the surface level take. There's a much more interesting angle here. But I don't think this is the place for it." So you hold back. You don't say the more complex thing. You simplify. You play along. But over time, simplifying yourself for other people's comfort becomes a habit. And that habit is tiring. At some point, you might start to think, what's the point of going if I can't bring my full self anyway? And if you've ever had the experience of letting a bit more of your true self slip out, your intensity, your curiosity, your weird questions, your honesty, and seeing people get uncomfortable, dismissive, or judgmental, that just reinforces the lesson. Some high IQ individuals end up feeling like shapeshifters in social settings. They know how to mimic what's expected. They can do normal if they have to, but it never feels like home, so they choose to stay home. Now, to be fair, we need to acknowledge something uncomfortable. Not all avoidance of social gatherings is a wise high-level optimization. Sometimes it's also fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of failing at the performance, fear of draining yourself for nothing. And intelligence doesn't magically erase fear. In some ways, it can even make it worse because you can imagine more things that might go wrong. You might think, if I'm so smart, why am I like this? But intelligence isn't courage. It's a tool. It helps you analyze. It doesn't always help you act. There's also neurodivergence in the mix. Some people with high IQs are also autistic, or ADHD, or highly sensitive in other ways. For them, social environments can be not just emotionally tiring, but physically painful. Bright lights, loud sounds, constant interruptions to thought. If that's you, you're not imagining it. Your nervous system might genuinely be wired in a way that makes overstimulating environments harder to tolerate, and forcing yourself into them just to look normal can backfire badly. So if we zoom out, we have a combination of factors. Higher baseline mental activity makes social input more draining. Preference for depth over small talk makes most gatherings feel boring or fake. Increased sensitivity to noise, chaos, and social dynamics makes parties feel overwhelming. Future-oriented thinking makes large chunks of unstructured social time feel inefficient. Metacognition makes you self-conscious and over-analytical in real time. And sometimes past experiences of not being understood make you preemptively withdraw. Put all of that together and suddenly the pattern makes sense. You're not broken for preferring a book to a bar. You're not arrogant for finding what's up conversations unsatisfying. You're not failing at life because weekends alone feel better than weekends packed with people you don't really connect with. But, and this is important, that doesn't automatically mean all social gatherings are useless or that you should never push your comfort zone. Because here's the catch. Even if you're highly intelligent, even if you think differently, even if you value solitude, you're still human. And humans are social creatures. It doesn't mean you need to be out every weekend. It doesn't mean you need a giant friend circle. But completely isolating yourself comes with its own costs. Mental health struggles, echo chambers, distorted self-image, lack of feedback from reality, and a growing gap between you and the world. The goal is not to go from I reject social gatherings to I force myself into every single one. The goal is to build a social life that's tailored to your brain. Think about it like this. If you have a high-performance engine, you don't take it to every random dirt road. You pick the routes that suit it. You adjust the conditions and you drive in a way that doesn't burn it out. Let's talk about what that looks like for you. First, it might mean redefining what socializing even is. You don't have to love parties to love people. You don't have to enjoy crowds to value connection. You don't have to be the loudest in the room to have meaningful relationships. Maybe you're someone who thrives in one-on-one conversations, especially with people who are as curious as you are. Maybe you love long walks with a friend where you can talk about real things. Maybe you enjoy small groups built around a specific interest. A book club, a project, a study group, a hobby. If that's you, then rejecting stereotypical social gatherings is not antisocial. It's you selecting the forms of social interaction that work for your wiring. And that's smart. You don't need to feel guilty for not liking what others like. What you can do, though, is ask yourself, okay, if this format doesn't work for me, when was the last time you had a conversation that left you energized instead of drained? Who were you talking to? What were you talking about? What was different about that situation? That's data. Maybe you were talking to someone who shared your interests. Maybe the setting was quieter and calmer. Maybe there was a clear structure, like collaborating on something so you weren't stuck in awkward aimlessness. Maybe you felt safe enough to be honest. That kind of situation is worlds apart from a random loud gathering, where the main goal is just hang out. High IQ individuals often need their social time to feel meaningful, or at least aligned with their interests. If you don't give your brain that, it will keep choosing solitude. And honestly, can you blame it? Now, there's another thing to clear up. Rejecting social gatherings doesn't automatically mean you're good at being alone. You might be really familiar with this pattern. You say no to an invite, you stay home. And at first, it feels good. The quiet, the control, the comfort. But then after a while, a different feeling creeps in. That strange emptiness, scrolling your phone, wondering what everyone else is doing. Feeling both relieved and a bit left out. Thinking, I don't want to be there, but I don't exactly want to be here either. That in-between feeling is important. It's your system telling you something. Solitude is powerful when you use it intentionally to rest, think, create, explore your mind. But when you use it only as an escape from discomfort, it can turn into a trap. You might start building a story about yourself. I'm just not a people person. No one really gets me. I work best alone, and some of that might be true. But if you scratch deeper, there might also be fear, hurt, or habits hiding behind it. So this isn't about romanticizing loneliness or acting like only the intelligent suffer this way. That's nonsense. People at all IQ levels struggle socially. High intelligence is just one of the lenses that changes how that struggle feels. Let's ground this a bit with a few simple practical shifts that can completely change your relationship with socializing without forcing you to morph into someone you're not. First, choose formats instead of just accepting invitations. Instead of waiting for random generic gatherings and then agonizing over whether to say yes, you can actually design the kind of social interactions that work for you. Invite 1 or 2 people you genuinely like for a coffee, a walk, or a quiet dinner. Host a tiny gathering around a specific topic or activity. Board games, movies, building something, cooking together. Join or create groups based on shared interests. Coding, philosophy, writing, fitness, weird niche hobbies, whatever genuinely lights you up. When you anchor socializing to something that naturally engages your mind, it stops feeling like forced interaction and starts feeling like collaboration or shared curiosity. Second, time box your exposure. Part of the dread around gatherings is the feeling of being trapped. If I go, I won't know when I can leave. Your brain hates that ambiguity. You can change that. You can decide in advance. I'm going for an hour. I'll talk to 3 people. If I'm having a great time, I'll stay longer. If not, I leave without hating myself for it. Giving your brain a clear endpoint can dramatically lower the resistance to just showing up. Third, give yourself a role. High IQ brains often calm down when they have a defined function. Standing around making small talk is vague and mentally noisy. But if you have a role helping, organize, managing music, taking photos, assisting someone, your focus has a direction. You're not just there. You're contributing. You have a purpose. Purpose reduces awkwardness. Suddenly, you're not analyzing yourself every second. You're doing something. Fourth, reframe what being social even means in your head. You don't have to be loud to be social. You don't have to talk constantly. You don't have to be the funny one, the charming one, the life of the party. You can be the one who really listens. The one who asks surprisingly good questions. The one who remembers what someone told you last time and follows up on it. The one who leaves early but leaves a warm impression. Being social is not a single personality template. It's a spectrum of ways of being present with other humans. Fifth, be honest in small doses. A lot of your suffering might be coming from pretending to enjoy things you don't enjoy, staying longer than you want, saying yes when you mean no. You're allowed to say, I'm not a big party person, but I'd love to grab coffee sometime. You're allowed to say, I can come, but I'll probably leave early. I get drained in big groups. You're allowed to suggest alternatives instead of just disappearing. Will everyone understand? No. But the people who do are the ones you want to keep around anyway. Now, let's talk about something a tiny bit ego-threatening. Intelligence does not automatically come with social skill. You might be brilliant in your field and still awkward at reading subtext. You might see patterns in abstract systems and totally miss emotional signals. You might be great at logic and awful at saying hi to a stranger. And that's okay. But just like you trained your brain in other areas, you can train your social brain too on your own terms. You don't need to become a performer. But learning basic conversational tools, emotional awareness and boundaries can massively lower the friction you feel around humans. And honestly, once you have basic social competence, rejecting certain gatherings stops feeling like I can't and starts feeling like I choose not to. That alone is a huge psychological shift. Speaking of choice, you might want to ask yourself a slightly uncomfortable question at some point. Am I rejecting this gathering because it genuinely doesn't match my values and wiring? Or because it's easier to tell myself I'm above it than to admit I'm scared or out of practice? That's not an accusation, it's just an invitation to be real with yourself. Because there's a difference between that kind of environment doesn't nourish me. And I've been hurt, rejected, or bored so many times that I'd rather not try again. And sometimes the smart brain is the one building the best excuses. It's not that you're lying, it's that you're so good at rationalizing that you can turn avoidance into a philosophy. If that stung a little, yeah, that might be relevant. On the flip side, if you've spent your life forcing yourself into social molds that don't fit, always feeling too much or too intense or too serious, you might actually need to lean into your difference more, not less. There is nothing wrong with being the person who prefers a deep late-night conversation to a crowded party, or the person who would rather spend a weekend building something than bar hopping, or the person whose ideal evening is reading, thinking, sketching out ideas, writing, coding, or just existing quietly. You don't owe the world a constantly extroverted version of yourself. What you do owe yourself is honesty. What actually makes you feel alive? What actually gives you energy? If your honest answer is, my mind comes alive when I'm alone or with one or two people who really get me, then build your life around that. But also keep a small doorway open for the possibility that some people you don't know yet are actually worth the effort it takes to meet them. Because even the most independent, high IQ, self-sufficient person usually has at least one or two connections that make all the difference. A mentor, a friend who understands your weirdness and doesn't flinch, a partner who appreciates your depth instead of being intimidated by it, a collaborator who's just as obsessed with that obscure thing as you are. You're not going to meet those people if you shut down every opportunity that involves other humans. So maybe the real question isn't why do high IQ individuals reject social gatherings? We kind of know why. The more interesting question is, given how my brain works, what kind of social world is worth saying yes to? And once you have some kind of answer to that, you can start making small deliberate moves. Say no to the events that you know will drain you without giving anything back. Say yes to the weird niche, maybe slightly uncomfortable spaces where people like you are more likely to show up. Reach out to the one person you already kind of connect with and deepen that connection. Experiment with tiny steps instead of forcing giant leaps. By the way, it's completely okay if you're still figuring out where you fall in all of this. Maybe you're not sure your high IQ, and honestly the exact number is not the point. What matters is your lived experience. If you're someone who thinks a lot, feels different in most group settings, values depth over small talk, gets exhausted by crowds, uses solitude to recover and to think, then this conversation applies to you, label or not. You don't need a test result to legitimize how your nervous system reacts to the world. It's also worth saying this directly. You're not alone in feeling this way, even if it feels like it. There are so many people quietly opting out of the mainstream social game, sitting at home on a Saturday night, half relieved, half wondering if they've messed their life up somehow. People who would rather watch something thoughtful than shout over music. People who would rather write than talk. People who are surrounded by others and still feel like an alien most of the time. You're not the only one. You're just maybe one of the few who is honest enough to notice it instead of numbing it away. If you have listened this far, I'd bet there's a part of you that feels seen in a way you don't always get in everyday life. Like, oh, so I'm not just dramatic. There's an actual pattern here. Hold on to that, because the next time someone says, "You're so quiet, are you okay?" or "You never come out anymore," you'll have a different narrative playing in your head. Not, "I'm broken." Not, "I'm weird, but my brain works differently. I process more. I prefer depth. I'm selective about my energy, and that's valid." From there, you decide when is it worth stretching your comfort zone. When is it wise to honor your limits? No one else gets to dictate that balance for you. And if you feel a bit torn, part of you wanting to be left alone, part of you craving real connection, that's not a contradiction. That's just what it feels like to be a thinking human in a noisy world. One last thing. If life has made you feel like you're too intense, too quiet, too analytical, too in your head to belong, here's a small reframe. Maybe you're not too anything. Maybe the spaces you've been in so far just weren't designed for you. High IQ individuals rejecting social gatherings isn't a glitch. It's often a signal. A signal that the environment doesn't match the mind, that the conversations don't match the curiosity, that the noise doesn't match the kind of music your thoughts are trying to play. Your job isn't to silence that signal. Your job is to listen to it without letting it turn you into a hermit who forgets how to be human. So, yeah, maybe you'll keep saying no to a lot of generic invites, and honestly, that's fine. But at the same time, I hope you keep saying yes in your own way, at your own pace, to the kinds of people and spaces where your mind doesn't have to hide. Because when a brain like yours finds its people, even if it's just one or two of them, something shifts. Social gatherings stop being noise and start being home. Even if that gathering is just you and one other person sitting on a couch talking about the stuff that everyone else finds too much. And in that moment, all the times you said no to the wrong rooms will make sense. You weren't rejecting people. You were waiting, maybe without even realizing it, for the rooms that actually deserve you.